Today on Family Talk.
Hello, everyone. This is Roger Marsh sitting behind the microphone for Dr. James Dobson on this edition of Family Talk. Dr. Dobson is traveling back from Israel today after being there for the past week. He joined a coalition of Christian leaders who met with Israeli officials to discuss the imminent move of the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem. Keep Dr. Dobson in your thoughts and prayers today as he makes his way back to Colorado Springs. Now, for today's broadcast.
President Reagan once said that freedom is just one generation away from extinction. One generation away. Last year, we came pretty close, ladies and gentlemen. Franklin Graham told me in an interview that we were at a moral tipping point, our nation. I believe that God has given our nation a second chance.
That's Fox News radio host and contributor Todd Starnes as he addressed Family Talk's annual gathering event last fall. On today's broadcast, Mr. Starnes will share stories of religious freedoms being attacked all over the country, but why the election of President Trump gives him hope for the future of America. Let's listen now to his speech that we've entitled, We the People, Defending Our God-Given Rights, right here on Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk.
My goodness. Well, thank you very much. And hello. I bring you greetings from the Fox News corner of the world. My office is on the far right side of the building. I'm not sure what to read into that, but that's what they tell me. Now, just a moment ago, I received a note. The president was speaking at the Values Voters Summit in Washington, D.C., and I wanted to share with you two quotes that he delivered from the podium less than an hour ago. And I think they certainly speak true to what we are doing here at this gathering. The president said, and I quote, "We are stopping cold the attacks on Judeo-Christian values." Those are the words from our president. And then he said this quote, "The American family is the true bedrock of American life." I think we're going to be just fine, folks, moving forward with that president in the White House. Now, I always forget to mention this, but I hope that you check out my website, toddstarnes.com. It's sort of like the landing page for all of our social networking things, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I tried Pinterest, and I couldn't figure it out to save my life, folks. I joined, and I have a lot of things to do about quilting now that I have known nothing about. And recipes. But I hope that you check out toddstarnes.com. That's where we post all of our columns and videos and things of that nature. And of course, you can check out all of the books, the latest being The Deplorables Guide to Making America Great Again. Which, that book, by the way, is based on a sermon delivered by Adrian Rogers, one of my favorite pastors. Back in the 1990s, he delivered a sermon on Christian citizenship, and the folks at Love Worth Finding were so gracious and allowed me to use that as the thesis for how do we go forward and fight for the values that made this country great. Now, I want to share a little bit of my background because I know a lot of folks, you may not know me. I've been at Fox News for about 13 years now. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm a Southern Baptist. I'm what we call a womb-to-tomb Baptist. I was born at Baptist Hospital, and when it's time to go off to glory, it'll probably be at a Baptist hospital in Memphis. But my father got saved on the work site. He was invited to a revival meeting at a Baptist church, and he got saved, and my mother got saved after that, and then we became a church-going family. I'm one of those people President Obama was talking about way back in 2007, one of those folks who clings to his guns and clings to his religion. I'm one of those people that Hillary Clinton called a deplorable. And I'm proud to call myself a gun-toting, Bible-clinging, barbecue-eating son of a Baptist. And I'm not bitter, I'm blessed. And I'm not irredeemable. I've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Now I live among the indigenous liberal population of Brooklyn, New York. And a lot of people ask me, Todd, why would you subject yourself to such hostilities every day of your life? And I felt that to truly understand the American liberal, I needed to live in their natural habitat. I tell stories about people of faith at Fox News Channel. That's what I do. I tell stories about religious liberty under attack. I tell stories about our government trying to impose their will on good Christian people across the country. That's my assignment as we wage this war, is to tell the stories, to let people know what's going on. You know, the great Ernie Pyle, he was one of the most powerful journalists of the day during World War II, and he was killed in action as he was covering that war. Ernie Pyle made a name for himself by covering ordinary folks. He made a name for himself by telling those same stories of ordinary folks serving in the military, telling the stories of ordinary folks who became known as our greatest generation. And so in a way, I consider myself to be sort of the Ernie Pyle of this generation, telling the stories of ordinary folks who are going about living their lives, serving Jesus. Many of them are not going out there looking for a fight, but the fight comes to them. You know, back to my book for just a moment. I do believe that the defining moment of the 2016 presidential election happened in early November when Hillary Clinton stood before an LGBT gathering in New York City, just across from the Grand Central Terminal. And she said that half of Donald Trump's supporters were a basket of deplorables, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, and the list went on and on and on. But that wasn't the part that cost her the election. It was something else she said. She said those people weren't just deplorable, but they were irredeemable. They were beyond redemption. And ladies and gentlemen, I contend that's how the left truly feels about people of faith, people who love Jesus, people who love this country. They truly believe we are beyond redemption. And I believe that's why we are seeing such a devastating attack on free speech on our college and university campuses across this country. I believe that's why you see on the mainstream media and the cable news channels, liberal pundits trying to justify the violence against conservative kids, the beatings and the attacks and the attempts to silence and eradicate Christianity from the public marketplace. Now, when I wrote The Deplorables, Donald Trump had just won the election. And that was a bit difficult because I wasn't quite sure where this book needed to go. But it reminded me something that Jerry Falwell once said. And Johnny Moore, if he's in the room, I called him to ask him about this quote. He said, the problem is that Christians are good at getting out there and fighting, but they don't win the fight. When Ronald Reagan got elected, people celebrated, and then they went back to their homes and their churches, and they sat back in the Barca loungers with their Diet Coca-Colas, and they said, okay, it's Ronald Reagan's responsibility now. And look what happened. A few years later, we had Read My Lips, and then we had a community organizer in the White House. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the work has just begun. Just because Donald Trump got elected does not mean the work is over. Now, to be fair, and you've heard others say this, so far so good. The president has done an incredible job. He nominated Justice Gorsuch to the court. But beyond that, even more importantly, President Trump has nominated a number of strict constitutionalists to the lower courts. And I believe he is the most pro-life president we've had in modern history. I also believe that this president has done more to protect religious liberty than any other president in modern history. Just last Friday, the Justice Department released a sweeping memorandum, and it did not get much play in the mainstream media. But this memorandum will protect religious liberty across the federal government and the military. But again, I warned you in the Deplorables Guide. The war rages on. The sex and gender revolutionaries and the cultural jihadists are on the warpath. They are loud and they are proud. Just the other day, the Boy Scouts announced they will allow girls to join their once storied organization. And based on their explanation, if I was a Girl Scout, I would be a bit offended because what the Boy Scouts basically said was that the Girl Scouts are somehow inferior to the Boy Scouts. We can do a better job of making Girl Scouts in the Boy Scouts. And of course, the Boy Scouts really didn't say what they were going to do with Boys who identify as girls, will they still be allowed to join the organization? Or girls who identify as boys? Or now the new phrase that's sweeping across the country, gender fluidity. You can be a Boy Scout in the morning, but by lunchtime you can feel like you're a Girl Scout. What do you do about that? I was talking to Mark Hancock. I had him on my radio program when word of the Boy Scouts decision. Mark is the CEO of Trail Life USA. Dr. Dobson, you had him on your radio program. Trail Life USA is a Christian-based scouting organization that was birthed after the Boy Scouts capitulated on their values and allowed just, all sorts of folks into their group. Mark told me, and I want to quote this, he said he's not terribly surprised by the decision. He said, what we are seeing across America is a war on boys. So as I wrote in my column at Fox News, do not be surprised if you see the Boy Scouts marching in the next Nasty Woman protest, wearing those pink matching knit hats. And don't be surprised if a new generation of scouts, gender-inclusive unisex scouts, will earn emasculation badges and social justice pins and volunteer for community service at the local Planned Parenthood abortion mills. So I say this to moms and dads across the country, and I say this at Fox News. If you have a child in the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts, you should run. Take your children and run and get them out of those organizations and put them in groups like American Heritage Girls and Trail Life USA and many of the other great Christian faith-based programs. We're also seeing this war on religious liberty being waged in the halls of Congress. Dr. Mark Green, a Tennessee state senator, a fellow believer in Jesus Christ, was forced to withdraw his nomination as President Trump's Army Secretary because he had been attacked and viciously smeared by gay and Muslim activists. You see, first they came, ladies and gentlemen, for the wedding planners and the bakers in America, and then they came for the Catholic farmers and the Baptist high school valedictorians, and now the secularists are coming after evangelical public servants. Now, I want to go back to the Catholic farmer story for just a moment. A few months ago, I did a column at Fox News. A good Catholic farming family in Michigan. They've been going down and selling their blueberries and their pumpkins at the local farmer's market for years. Well, it turns out that this farmer would not allow a lesbian couple to be married on the family farm. And so the city there in Michigan decided, you know what? If you're not going to let the lesbians marry on your family farm, you're not going to be able to sell your blueberries at the farmer's market anymore. These are the kinds of stories that I tell at Fox News. It wasn't too long ago that Russell Vought, President Trump's nominee to be Deputy Director of the White House Office of Management and Budget, was viciously attacked by Senator Bernie Sanders. Perhaps you have seen the video. If not, you can go to see it on my website, toddstarnes.com. Bernie Sanders unleashed on Mr. Vought, a graduate of Wheaton College, and he literally screamed at this man. His only crime is that he follows the teachings of Jesus Christ. It was Governor Andrew Cuomo who said New Yorkers who believe in traditional marriage and protecting the life of the unborn should leave his state. You people are not welcome here. So again, I give you examples of how progressives and secularists are still waging this brutal assault on people of faith. And together we have to stand and say, no, we are not going to allow that to happen. We must renounce anti-Christian bigots and bigotry, especially when those bigots are walking the halls of Congress. Now, there's also been a raging battle in our country over religious liberty laws on the books to protect our right as American citizens to practice our faith outside of the walls of our church. And in many of the southern states, those laws have been defeated, which has been very shocking for people in the Bible Belt. Because, look, I'm from Memphis, Tennessee. Where I come from, everybody's a Baptist in Memphis. Even the Catholics are Baptist in Memphis, Tennessee. That's the way it is. So how is it that these laws have been shot down? Ladies and gentlemen, it's because of what's happening here in the state of Colorado. You see, there's a mega donor by the name of Tim Gill. And he is bankrolling a nationwide LGBT movement to shut down Christians. And it's not just shutting down these laws. He did an interview with Rolling Stone, published June 23rd. You can Google it. And here's what he had to say about every one of us in this room here. And you listen to this and you let the chills roll right down your spine when you hear it. We're going to punish the wicked. That's what this LGBT activist said. We're going to punish the wicked. We're going to shut down your businesses. We're going to take away your life savings. We're going to shame you and humiliate you. We are going to silence you. That's what these people want to do, and that's what they are doing. So the question is, what are we going to do about it as fellow believers? President Reagan once said that freedom is just one generation away from extinction. One generation away. Last year, we came pretty close, ladies and gentlemen. Franklin Graham told me in an interview that we were at a moral tipping point, our nation. But ladies and gentlemen, I do believe, as others have said here in this room over the past 2 days, I believe that God has given our nation a second chance. And I believe one of the reasons why is because of men and women like you who are willing to take a stand. And even beyond all of us in this room, there's something happening with this next generation, the generation beyond the millennials. This generation of young people who are taking a stand in their high schools and their college campuses. They're standing for religious liberty. They're standing for American values and traditions. And when many people across this country on Sunday at football stadiums are taking a knee, these young men and women are taking a stand. And you see, I still have hope for America. And I believe that we, the people, can fundamentally restore what President Obama fundamentally transformed. And I believe that together we can forge a new path for this great country. You see, I have hope in America because of a young man named Thomas Gunderson. I interviewed Thomas on my radio program from his hospital bed just last week in Las Vegas. Thomas was there on that terrible night when the bullets rained down, and like many other men, Thomas ran towards the danger. He was shot in the leg, dragged to safety by strangers, tossed into a pickup truck and taken to a hospital. The bullet caused terrible nerve damage to this young man's leg. He was in incredible pain. But when President Trump decided to come by and visit him in the hospital, Thomas knew that he would be standing on his feet, no matter how painful. And sure enough, when the president entered his room, Thomas struggled to his feet, and against the president's admonishment to stay seated, but this 28-year-old from Newport Beach, California, stood tall to shake the hand of his president. You see, many people across this country have been attacking men. There is a war on boys and men. They have a problem with men acting and behaving as men. They call it toxic masculinity. They're now teaching college courses on fighting toxic masculinity in America, as if that's a problem. Well, I have news for you, ladies and gentlemen. Go back and look at the coverage of Hurricane Irma. Go back and look at the hurricane coverage of Harvey. Go back and look at what happened in Las Vegas. Grown men wading into the floodwaters, carrying women and their children out to safety. That Marine who commandeered a pickup truck in Las Vegas so that they could load up that vehicle with injured to take them to safety. I've seen a lot of toxic masculinity around the country on display, and you know what? I don't see anybody complaining about it. You see, I have hope in our nation because of a young man named Alex Dunn of Fayetteville, North Carolina, 16 years old, his father serving our great military. Alex, sitting in his classroom in a public school, the teacher, to demonstrate free speech, took out the American flag and he set it on fire in the classroom. But the flag would not burn, so this teacher took out a pair of scissors and tried to rip the flag, and the flag would not rip. So the teacher then threw the flag on the floor and began stomping on the flag in the classroom. Alex Dunn, I had him on my radio program, and he said, Mr. Starnes, there was just something inside of me that snapped and said, get up and do something. And this 16-year-old boy jumped up out of his chair and ran to the front of the classroom and snatched that flag off the floor and took off out of the classroom. He gave that flag to the principal and said, sir, this flag has been desecrated. It must be retired. You see, Alex could have sat down and did nothing, but that young man knew he had to take a stand. And one of my favorite stories, I have hope because of the good people in Brandon, Mississippi, near Jackson. A federal court judge appointed by President Obama had issued an edict on that local school district. Anyone who says anything or does anything remotely religious, you will be fined $10,000. That was the edict handed down by this federal judge to that public school system. Well, it turned out that the marching band that particular year was playing How Great Thou Art in the halftime show. And the principal started doing the math. And he figured they could probably cover the trombone section, but that was about it. Didn't have enough in petty cash. So he told the kids, you can't play that song anymore. You can't do your halftime show. Well, Friday night football came. It's always warm and humid in that part of Mississippi during the fall of football season. And the stands were packed with all sorts of folks. And halftime came, and there was a weird silence that just sort of permeated the stadium. Nobody knew what to do. There was no marching band on the field. And then there was a cheerleader, little old girl. She put her pom-poms down, and she stood up. And she said these words, "O Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder." And soon, one by one, the people in the stadium began to sing along with this young girl. We had stay-at-home moms and waitresses and police officers, construction workers, and soon the entire stadium rose to their feet, and in defiance of the federal government, in defiance of the judges and the courts, sang, "How Great Thou Art." You see, the good people of Brandon, Mississippi, they took a stand. And in my closing moments, I want to ask you this. Who among us is willing to stand with the Thomas Gundersons of the world? Who among us is willing to stand with the Alex Dunns and the people of Brandon, Mississippi? You know, they may try to silence our voices. They may try to bully us into submission, but we must not be silent. We must not be bullied. Like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego so many, many years ago, we must not bow down. There is a quote from Bonhoeffer in that great book by Eric Metaxas. Bonhoeffer once said these words, "Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. Not to speak is to speak. Not to act is to act. God will not hold us guiltless." Well, my friends, I do believe this is a Bonhoeffer moment for every Bible-believing Christian in America. And God's little lambs can no longer be silent. We are to be civil lambs, but not silent lambs. And as my friends, the Benham brothers, once said, we must roar like lions. So I leave you with these words, my fellow Christians. We are surrounded. The cultural bullets are flying. The enemies of freedom are advancing, and the time has come for all of us to stand resolute. You say, "Todd, but I'm not a fighter." Well, there's no such thing today, because we are freedom's last line of defense. So do not hide liberty's light under a bushel. No, hold it high, and let the flame of freedom burn bright for all the world to see. It's time for every gun-toting, Bible-clinging, deplorable American to take a thunderous stand for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And let our prayer be, on this day, that our great nation will once again be that shining city on a hill. God bless you all, and thank you all very much.
Well, we hope you have been motivated by today's program featuring Fox News host and correspondent Todd Starnes here on Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. Learn more about Todd's radio broadcast or his book, The Deplorables Guide to Making America Great Again, when you visit our broadcast page at drjamesdobson.org. That's drjamesdobson.org, and then click on today's broadcast tab. We thoroughly enjoy hearing the stories of how God has changed your life and family through the ministry of Family Talk. If you haven't had a chance to share your story with us before, or you'd like to leave a comment about today's broadcast, call our listener feedback line toll-free at 844-823-2669. Now, you can also connect with us online by emailing us at feedback@myfamilytalk.com. That's the word feedback at myfamilytalk.com. Also, when you contact us, we would really appreciate it if you'd let us know how you listen to Family Talk, whether it's on the radio, through our website or our app, or with our friends at oneplace.com. Again, the number to call to give us that information is 844-823-2669. Thanks so much for joining us today and all this week here on Family Talk. Be sure to join us again on Monday as Dr. Dobson will be back to bring you a classic broadcast from motivational speaker Carolyn Coons. You won't want to miss that program coming up next time on Dr. James Dobson's Family Talk. I'm Roger Marsh. Have a great weekend.
Family Talk is not associated with Focus on the Family.